Cocaine is God's way of telling you you're making too much money. And now that you have a child, you have to clean up your act because you can't drink anymore. You can't come home drunk and go, hey there's a little switch. Daddy's going to throw it up on you. Ah yes, divorce. From the Latin word meaning to rip out a man's genitals through his wallet. You see, the problem is that God gives men a brain and a penis, and only enough blood to run one at a time. Ballet, men wearing pants so tight that you can tell what religion they are. You can start any Monty Python routine and people finish it for you. Everyone knows it like shorthand. On Canada. Canada is like a loft apartment over a really great party. Comedy is acting out optimism. To troops in Iraq. I'm looking at a group of heavily armed people there. I'm telling myself, if you're not funny, it's a problem. On Popeye, 1980. If you watch it backwards, it has a plot. Everyone has these two visions when they hold their child for the first time. The first is your child as an adult saying, I would like to thank the Nobel Committee for this award. And the other is, you want fries with that? A woman would never make a nuclear bomb. They would never make a weapon that kills. No, no. They'll make a weapon that makes you feel bad for a while. About comic lines written by Mark Scheiman being removed for innuendo. Example, Chip and Dale are both strippers. The week before his presenting of a Best Animated Film at the 77th Academy Awards. For a while you get mad and then you get over it. They're afraid of saying olive oil is anorexic. I'll tell you about the state of humor. It's strange to think, how afraid are you? We thought that they got the irony of it. I guess not. You're only given one little spark of madness. You mustn't lose it. They're talking about partial nuclear disarmament, which is also like talking about partial circumcision. You either go all the way or you forget it. Countering the complaint that the juiciest roles go to younger actors, the roles, may not be financially enriching, but personally enriching? Yes, you are no longer under pressure. You don't have to prove yourself on some levels, but you do have to creatively push yourself. I started doing comedy because that was the only stage that I could find. It was the pure idea of being on stage. That was the only thing that interested me, along with learning the craft and working, and just being in productions with people. On his acting career, all the new people you meet, it's pretty amazing. The vampire needs new blood, and there's still a lot to learn, and there is always great stuff out there. Even mistakes can be wonderful. Okra is the closest thing to nylon I've ever eaten. It's like they bred cotton with a green bean. Okra tastes like snot. The more you cook it, the more it turns into string. I believe I could do Dance on Ice, or play in a musical theater, or play in a musical of Frood's Life called It's Your Mother, or maybe one of the Symbolists, Young at Heart. That's always the one about India, the Gandhi man, Ken. While accepting the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for Good Will Hunting, 1997. Most of all, I want to thank my father up there, the man who, when I said I wanted to be an actor, he said, wonderful, just have a backup profession like welding. Australians are basically English rednecks. If Darwin had landed in Australia, he would have gone, I'm wrong. I'll play the Riddler. I'll play the Riddler in the next Batman, although it'd be hard to top Heath Ledger as the villain, and I'm a little hairy for tights. Plus, the Batman films have screwed me for twice before. Years ago, they offered me the Joker and gave it to Jack Nicholson. And then they offered me the Riddler and gave it to Jim Carrey. He did, however, work with Christopher Nolan in 2002's Insomnia. So it would have been nice for him to appear in Nolan's third film, Dark Knight Rises. But they never worked that out to be in a Chris Nolan Batman movie for him. So, lost opportunity again. On entertaining... Oh yeah, I already said that about the troops. There's so much to talk about. The fact that Donald Trump wants to see Obama's birth certificate. I want to see his hairline first. That is his real hair, by the way. I was once walking in an airport and a woman came up to me and said, "Be zany." That would be like walking up to a Barley Shikoff and saying, "Plea, just do me a plea, do it. Do it or leave right now. Lift up my wife." I went to rehab in wine country just to keep my options open. Men can't fake an orgasm. Who wants to look that dumb, you know? What am I saying? Stand-up is the place where you can do things that you could never do in public. Once you step up on stage, you're licensed to do that. It's an understood relationship. You walk on stage, it's your job. On Jonathan Winters. Jonathan taught me that the world is open for play. That everything and everybody is mockable in a wonderful way. Jonathan Winters was my mentor. I told him that and he said, "Please, I prefer Idol." On working with Al Pacino in Insomnia 2002. I love working with Pacino. Al does this method thing where before takes, he roars like a lion. So on my first day working with him, I bleated like a goat. What was that? Hi Al, I'm here. It's just Robin, just playing. Playing scenes with him was a little surreal because I was like, I'm watching Al Pacino. And then I realized I had to act too. I love talking to him off set. He plays all these incredible characters. But he claims most of the time he just wants to be in the village having coffee and discussing Aristotle. Having worked with Robert De Niro on Awakens 1990, what a putsch schmuck that guy is. I was kind of prepared for the idea of someone who was that intense. If I ever get to work with Robert Duvall, I'll have the entire Godfather collector set, except for Brando. But I got to meet Brando once, so I guess that qualifies. But like Christopher Nolan, even though he's very focused, he's also prepared to try anything. At that time, Al was flying back and forth from LA because his twins were just born. So I think his was beyond method acting. He really wasn't getting any sleep. He was completely rigged, and that was perfect. Again, working with Chris Nolan, how cool would that have been if he appeared in some character as The Dark Knight Rises? Watch the rise. I used to think that the worst thing in life was to end up alone. It's not. The worst thing in life is to end up with people who make you feel alone. Ain't that the truth? Divorce is expensive. I used to joke they were going to call it all the money, but they changed it to alimony. It's ripping your heart out through your wallet. The truth is, if anything, I'm probably addicted to laughter. If women ran the world, we wouldn't have wars. Just intense negotiations every 28 days. You're only given a little spark of madness. If you lose that, you're nothing. On The World's Greatest Dad, 2009, being an indictment of the modern grief industry and asked if it's getting worse, I think people want it. In a weird way, it's trying to keep hope alive. On if he does or doesn't have the film's judgment on mawkish sentimentality. Well, you just try and keep it in perspective. You have to remember the best and the worst. In America, they really do mythologize people when they die. From his first appearance on The Tonight Show, October 14th, 1981, I was the only child on my block on Halloween to go, trick or trout, here comes that young Williams boy again, better get some fish. on Genesis. This is a group that pulled off the single most surprising lead singer swap in all of rock history. Their first-grade frontman, Peter Gabriel, decided to stop dressing like vegetables and little furry woodland creatures and went solo to shock his monkey. And instead of asking another steadily qualified singer or having a talent contest so Simon Cowell could go, "I'm sorry, darling, you suck." No, they just looked to their brilliantly gifted drummer and said, "You, Collins, you, Bob Hoskins lookalike, get your ass up on the microphone and sing your buttocks off." And so Phil did, and it was good, and the goodness became greatness. It's amazing that medical science can develop a drug to give you an erection, but can't develop a drug to give you mental clarity. Life's a tragedy to those who feel, and comedy to those who think. So it can be a curse in that you find something funny even in the darkest thing. Being a celebrity is like wearing a Mardi Gras hat, although you're not floating. Obviously, it's great that you can get a table in a restaurant, but it can also get people following you in the men's room with a palm cam. The imagination functions on its own. I grew up as an only child, so the imagination was a necessity, like a survival mechanism, on who can run for office in American politics. We're frightening away people who have lived interesting lives, intelligent people who might have inhaled, who might have had different sexual experiences or orientations, but who are stone cold brilliant. On George W. Bush, there's nothing like Bush has said, apart from a few malagromisms that we will remember. Comparing him to Churchill is akin to comparing Margaret Thatcher and Paris Hilton. I had my midlife crisis when I was about 30, so I got that over with. But when I hit 50, I was like, this is cool. It's like the prime of your life, literally. Things are going great. You'll come to that point where it's no longer a struggle. As Rodney Dangerfield said, "Why am I sweating? Why am I sweating? I own the club." You're there, so you don't have to worry as much. And yet the object is to keep working, to find interesting parts. And obviously it's skewed more for men than women to find character parts in my age. And hey, supporting parts are just as interesting as the lead. My childhood was lonely. Both my parents were away a lot working, and the maid basically raised me. And I think that's where a lot of my comedy comes from. Not only was the maid very funny and witty, but when my mom came home, I'll use humor to try and get her attention. If I made mommy laugh, then maybe everything would be all right. I think that's where it all started. On the first film to make a big impression on him. That was 2001, A Space Odyssey, 1968. I saw it at the Cinerama with my parents and was totally slack-jawed. With that sort of cinema and that film, you don't ever need to take acid. It knocked me out. I love science fiction and Kubrick. The whole experience was so surreal. Cocaine is nothing new. It's been a part of Hollywood from the outset. It's the pressure, I think. People use it to relieve that. For me, it was just about getting numb and forgetting. I did coke so I wouldn't have to talk to anyone. For me, it was a true sedative, a way to pull back from the world. I don't know how much value I have in this universe. I don't know how much value I have in this universe, but I do know that I've made a few people happier. I don't know how much value I have in this universe, but I do know that I've made a few people happier than they would have been without me. And as long as I know that, I'm as rich as I ever need to be. Right. His word for improv? Playing! Playing. I once was on a German talk show, and if you want to go on one, it's a lot of fun. It's really fun. And I was on this German talk show, and this woman said to me, she said, "Mr. Williams, Why do you think there's not so much comedy in Germany? And I said, do you ever think you killed all the funny people? And here's where it got interesting. She didn't even bat an eye. She just went, no. At that point, even God's going, do you get it? German comedy, knock knock, we ask the questions. On The Fisher King, 1991, we've closed down Grand Central for the ballroom scene, and this guy on a bicycle with a winged hat started circling us, saying, hello, my name is Mercury, and I'd like to speak to Terry Gilliam right now. And then there was this taxi driver who kept yelling, screw you, screw your movie. Phil Collins gets a lot of flack, but I think it's undeserved. That man was the glue that kept Genesis together. No other band could lose a frontman as popular as Peter Gabriel and come out stronger. Never happens. Be honest. Do you think the other three was going to keep the band going? Besides that, he was a damn good drummer. One of the best in the business. Turn off the radio and listen to one of the Genesis albums from the 1970s to see what I'm talking about. And last but not least, I think the saddest people always try their hardest to make people happy because they know what it is like to feel absolutely worthless, and they don't want anyone else to feel like that. One more time. Closing. I think the saddest people always try their hardest to make people happy because they know what it's like to feel absolutely worthless, and they don't want anyone else to feel like that. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. And that's all for now, folks. We'll see you in November. We'll see you in November 2024. And to close, all three of the comedians in this one, and it includes for the other two, to wrap it all up, conclude for all three of these, everybody dance and have a good time. This is Millennial Man Motions Entertainment, LLC. Signing out till News and Politics in November 2024. Shalom.